What if an unexpected reunion could shatter everything you have built? Emily's anniversary trip with Mark quickly derailed when she unexpectedly encounters her ex, Alex, plunging her into a whirlwind of suppressed emotions and potential betrayal. Little did Emily know, this encounter would unearth feelings she had buried long ago. How would you handle the sudden return of your first love on a day meant for celebration? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the stunning resort that greeted Emily and Mark. Lush tropical plants swayed gently in the breeze, and the soft sounds of distant waves lapping against the shore created a perfect backdrop for what was supposed to be their dream anniversary celebration. Emily's heart fluttered with anticipation. Up beneath her smile lay an undercurrent of unease, a heaviness that tugged at her chest. Mark said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. He took her hand, his touch grounding her momentarily. "It's beautiful," she replied, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. But her thoughts began to drift, hovering over memories of happier times. They strolled hand in hand through the vibrant gardens, fragrant flowers blooming around them, reminiscent of the sweetness of their early romance. Yet, as they wandered deeper into the grounds, a familiar silhouette caught her eye. There, across the garden, stood Alex, surged forward like a tide crashing onto the shore. She blinked, half wondering if she was imagining it. But as she studied him, the reality settled in. Alex was real, and the pang of old feelings she thought had faded clawed at her once again. Mark, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing inside her, continued to chat animatedly about their plans for the evening. Petals falling from a tree. There were moments of laughter shared beneath the stars, whispered secrets in quiet corners, and a sense of belonging that felt as weighty as the deep void left by their separation. She could see herself as she had been with Alex Wilde, utterly unguarded. Each recollection deepened her internal conflict, twisting and turning like a restless ocean. "Em? You okay?" Mark's voice pulled her from the whirlpool of memories. She nodded, but her mind wandered again to the man who had once held her heart. With uncertainty crackling in the air, Emily watched as Alex made his way toward her, the world around them fading into a blur. Their eyes locked in that charged moment, a silent acknowledgement of their history flashing between them. Familiarity of his gaze ignited a warmth in her she hadn't expected, stirring emotions that had been resting just below the surface. "Emily?" Alex's voice was smooth and warm as he greeted her, and the weight of their shared past hung thick in the air. "It has been a long time?" "Yeah, it has," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The turmoil within her escalated, a tempest of old affection clashing with her current reality. Memories spun in her minders of both joy and heartbreak, while Alex's presence made her heart race for reasons that terrified her. As they exchanged words, the connection she once felt began to bubble to the surface, threatening the delicate balance of her commitment to Mark. The air around them seemed to hang heavy, filled with unresolved tension and unspoken longing. Suddenly, nostalgia twisted into confusion, and just as easily could morph into temptation. What path would she choose? With each passing second, the answer seemed to drift further away. As Alex stepped closer, the possibility stretched before her, tantalizingly close yet frighteningly uncertain. Would she embrace the past that had haunted her, or would she defend the future she had built? In that charged space, she was left questioning her heart, feeling an attraction that threatened to distort everything she held dear. The shadows of doubt lengthened, curling around her thoughts. As the conversation continued, Emily could feel the weight of her choices pressing in on her. Every word exchanged felt like it could lead her down a path she feared to walk. The day of celebration was about to spiral into a complex web of emotions and choices. What would that mean for her and Mark? For her heart? As Alex moved closer, the question hung in the air: what path would she choose? Over the next few days, the weight of unspoken thoughts hung heavy around Emily, weaving a tightening knot in her chest. Every encounter with Alex became a silent battle, each shared glance like a spark that lit the tinder of her confusion. She found herself inventing reasons to be near him, bumping into him by the pool, lingering at the bar just long enough to catch snippets of his conversations with others. The laughter and easy banter they once shared took on a coat of yearning that left her breathless. Yet, every touch, however innocent, felt like a step further into the abyss, separating her heart from the life she had built with Mark. Inside, Emily's mind churned with turmoil. Was it disloyalty to miss the way Alex's presence felt like home? Faces of lovers entwined danced before her. Her and Mark with plans for a future, and then her and Alex, deep in the maze of their past. The question tormented her, dark and unyielding, closing in like a fog. Mark, observant and caring, began to sense the growing distance between them. He would reach for her hand during dinner, his eyes searching hers. "You okay? You've seemed distracted lately," he said gently, his brow furrowing in concern. "It's nothing. Just feeling a bit overwhelmed by the trip, I guess," she replied, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. But inside her, a tempest brewed, each attempt to reassure him only adding to her guilt. She loved Marky's kindness and the stability he offered, but Alex's presence stirred a longing that felt undeniable. Confiding in Sarah, the witty resort staff member, proved to be a balm for Emily's soul, albeit an unintended one. As they shared a casual moment over drinks at the beach bar one evening, Sarah's laughter rang out like a luminous bell. "You know, love can be such a line of irony," she mused, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I once had a crush on a guy who was totally wrong for me, but man, did he have charm. Regret followed me long after our paths split." Emily listened, her heart pounding. Was it foolish to yearn for the past? Sarah's anecdotes reflected Emily's own internal struggle with longing, braided with regret, words that twisted deeper into her heart with every syllable. A part of her wished it were easier. The guilt weighed down on her like an anchor. Almost unnoticed, Mark and Alex had developed a palpable camaraderie. Their laughter bubbled over at breakfast, and Emily often caught herself watching, her heart twisting painfully at the sight. Oh, how could they get along so well? Both men. But only one place in her heart. Each time she walked past them, a wave of jealousy surged through her, leaving her feeling small and guilty, the two almost taunting her with their easy friendship. It was during one such moment that everything came crashing down. As Emily strolled along the hallway, she overheard Mark speaking to Alex, his voice full of admiration. "You know, I really admire your drive, Alex. Your charm and your ability to connect with people's impressive." The words struck like a cold wind, freezing her in place. Imposter feelings surged through her as she stood there, invisible and engulfed by waves of inadequacy. What was she offering? She couldn't help but wonder if Mark would be better off without her. Perhaps Alex was everything she was not. Taking a deep breath, Emily stepped away from the door, her heart racing. The connection she felt with Alex suddenly loomed larger, threatening to unleash a desire that could unravel everything she had with Mark. Would this moment push her to make a choice, defining her future once and for all? In a setting designed for joy, the darkness of betrayal loomed ever closer. The lavish anniversary dinner unfolded in a beautifully decorated dining room, with elegant table settings and a tantalizing array of gourmet dishes. But for Emily, each forkful of food felt heavy and unpalatable. Filled with unease, she forced smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes, all the while aware of the fragile facade that shrouded her heart. Overwhelmed by guilt and temptation, Emily set her utensils down, excusing herself with a strained smile. "I just need a moment," she murmured to Mark, who nodded, oblivious to the storm brewing within her, tension clinging to her skin. Oh, there in the shadows, she found Alex leaning against a wall, his presence sending a cascade of conflicting emotions coursing through her. The air crackled as their eyes met, a charged recognition flashing between them. "Emily, I didn't think you'd come," Alex said, his voice low but steady, the calm confidence he always exuded acting like a balm on her frayed nerves. "I need to see you," she stammered, her heart racing. There's so much to say. As they navigated their shared history, tension simmered beneath the surface, familiar warmth enveloped them, and for a fleeting moment the world beyond their bubble faded into oblivion. But in that cocoon, vulnerability intertwined with longing, and she felt the weight of all that had passed, the laughter they once shared, the secrets they had hidden, and the love that lingered in the background. Softening toward him, Mark walked in. The moment froze. Emily's heart sank as she caught the expression of disbelief unfolding on Mark's face. The warmth dissipated, replaced by a frigid tension that thickened the air around them. "Emily?" Mark's voice cracked like a wand snapping in half. His shock morphed into betrayal, mirrored in the widening of his eyes. "What's going on?" Caught between the two, Emily felt torn, the pieces of her heart scattered in the chaos. Mark, she began, but the words fell away, replaced by the thunderous silence of the moment. Accusations surged like a tidal wave. So, this is what you've been hiding? Mark spat, hurt lacing his tone. I thought we were working on things. Emily's face flushed with guilt. It's not like that. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Her voice trembled as the truth she had feared bubbled to the surface, raw and unfiltered. A convenient excuse, Alex interjected, stepping forward, his calm confidence wavering into something more fierce and protective. The tension boiled over, emotions colliding like waves crashing on a cliffside. Everybody deserves the truth, Emily, Mark insisted, each word slicing through the tight space. He looked at her as if she were a stranger, the disappointment evident. She could feel the cavern of trust they had built crumbling, and a deep ache settled in her chest. I wanted to tell you, Emily cried, desperation creeping into her voice. The fear of losing Mark clashed with her longing for Alex, turning her insides into a whirlwind of confusion. Just then, a moment stretched, fragile with the weight of their shared pain. Emily caught sight of Alex's pained expression, masked by his calm demeanor. Yet, the warmth of their connection ignited again amidst the chaos. A flicker of possibility, shimmering in the atmosphere. And then, in that fraught silence, her heart raced not just from the fear of losing Mark, but from the thrill of her connection to Alex reigniting at the worst possible moment. The stakes couldn't be higher as everything hung in the balance, the inevitable fallout hovering over them like a dark cloud. What would this confrontation mean for them all? Would it tear their relationships apart forever? Would it tear their relationships apart forever? The aftermath of the dinner confrontation hung in the air like a thick fog, and in its depths, Emily felt the weight of unspoken words pressing on her chest. Regret sizzled around her like electricity, each pulse a reminder of the raw pain they had. All laid bare. She stood near the edge of the resort garden, the distant sounds of laughter and clinking glasses serving as a cruel backdrop to her turmoil. Mark approached her, the hurt in his eyes layered with confusion. Emily, he said, his voice trembling. Slightly, what was that tonight? Are you really still connected to him? The question struck a nerve, sending waves of shame crashing over her. How could she explain the bond she shared with Alex, one that had twisted and turned over years, bringing both comfort and chaos? I don't know what to say, she stammered, struggling to wrestle her thoughts into coherence. Mark's brow furrowed as he pressed her for answers. It's not just about tonight. You've been distant for weeks. I need to understand what he means to you. The desperation in his tone cracked her heart open wider, the guilt spilling forth as she grappled with her emotions. Inside her mind, a whirlwind raged, a turbulent blend of love, regret, and betrayal that spiraled recklessly. Could she bear to expose the truth? Emily remembered the laughter they once shared, the simple joys of their relationship that now felt so frail beneath the weight of her choices. She began, but the words caught bitterly in her throat. Emily, Mark interjected gently, his anger softening into concern. I just want to know if we can mend this, if we can salvage what's left. His willingness to rebuild tugged at her heart, but it only complicated her feelings further. Memories flowed through her mind like a flood, an echo of laughter on sunny days spent together, tempered now by the shadow of her feelings for Alex. She saw through the years they shared the good, the bad, the moments when they strayed. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she murmured, shame washing over her. Meanwhile, at a distance, Alex loomed in the shadows of the garden, watching the exchange unfold. His heart waged war against his mind, a cacophony of emotions clawing at him as he processed what he had just witnessed. Did he still dare to hope for something between them, knowing she was committed? The uncertainty gnawed at him, twisting his stomach into knots. But what about my feelings? He thought, fighting the urge to intervene. As Emily and Mark dove deeper into their conversation, the air shifted, growing thick with unsaid emotions. Mark's bewilderment morphed into an earnest desire to repair the fractures. I don't want to lose you, he admitted, vulnerability seeping into his voice. I don't want to lose us either, Emily replied, her heart aching for both the connection and the turmoil that defined them. Just as they began to bridge the gap that had formed, a sudden buzz broke the fraught silence, pulling them from their moment. Emily's heart leaped into her throat in unexpected text. She glanced down at her phone, and her breath hitched as she Recognized the sender? Alex? Mark's eyes narrowed as he saw her expression. Is it him? Emily's heart raced, torn between hesitation and an undeniable urge to see what Alex had to say. As she opened the message, a wave of panic surged through her. What revelation awaited within those words, and how could it change everything? Wait, she whispered, a shiver running through her. A flutter of doubt settled in, heavy on her heart. Would this message lead her toward regret, or could it point her toward redemption? The moment of truth had arrived, and the weight of Emily's choices hung in the balance. She stood at the edge of the resort's garden, the dimming twilight casting shadows over the lush greenery. Discomfort tightened her chest as she wrestled with the mounting feelings for Alex that threatened to overshadow her commitment to Mark. What if embracing her heart meant tearing apart everything she had built with Mark? As she lingered in uncertainty, she felt the lingering imprint of Sarah's words echoing in her mind. Sarah, her best friend, had faced her own tempestuous love story, one that had left scars but also a deeper understanding of what true love could mean. Sometimes you have to break a few hearts to find your own, Sarah had once said, glistening with the pain of memory. Emily shivered at the thought, caught between longing and guilt. Could her fleeting desires mirror the chaos Sarah endured? Meanwhile, laughter drifted through the air from the main hall, where Mark and Alex were unwittingly forging a fragile friendship. The sound stabbed at Emily's heart, a reminder of lightness that felt so distant to her now. Mark's carefree humor contrasted sharply with her internal tempest. Mark chuckled, trying to draw Alex into the camaraderie. There was a relatability in their exchange, a simplicity she envied. How could they be so blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in her heart? Emily felt a pang of regret. She wished they could have shared that ease. She knew the laughter concealed the intricate web of feelings that entangled them all, pulling her deeper into a conflict that felt increasingly impossible to navigate. In desperate need of clarity, Emily retreated to the hidden corner of the resort, a secluded nook surrounded by fragrant blooms. Here she sought solace, but instead found something unexpected: a letter, neatly folded under a stone. Unease wrapped around her as she picked it up, a mixture of dread and anticipation swirling within her. The writing was unmistakably Alex's. With trembling hands, she opened the letter and began to read. Emily, I've tried to find the right time to say this, but there never seems to be one. The words flooded her mind with a mix of grief and longing, his emotions spilling onto the page. Each sentence was filled with raw truth and vulnerability. He laid bare his heart, detailing feelings she never realized he held. Being with you felt like coming home, but I also know that you have your commitments. Hope surged within her, vibrant yet perilous. She could almost hear his voice as she read, each word resonating deeply, causing her heart to race. But fear coiled around that hope, reminding her of everything she'd built with Mark: the stability, the laughter, the dreams they shared. How could I possibly choose? She murmured aloud, an unsettling question hanging in the air. Unanswered, as the last line sank in, she felt the full weight of his love, and her own indecision crashing over her like tidal waves. How would this letter redefine her perspective on both love and loyalty? The depth of his emotions echoed with old resonance, illuminating the shadows of her heart. Torn between two lives, Emily stood at a pivotal crossroads, the future uncertain and fraught with emotion, each path pulling at her in opposite directions. The moment of truth had arrived, and the weight of Emily's choices hung in the balance. Steeling herself, she navigated the familiar streets that led her to the park where she and Alex had shared laughter and dreams under the sprawling branches. Today, the air felt different, charged, electric, as if the world was holding its breath. As she approached the meeting place, the flutter in her stomach mirrored the rustling leaves. Each step carried the urgency of unspoken feelings and unresolved dreams. What was she hoping to find today? Clarity or chaos? The thought swirled through her mind, amplifying her anticipation. She took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was here. Alex appeared, leaning casually against a tree, but his eyes sparked with uncontainable emotions. "Emily," he greeted, his voice soft yet laden with history. "I am glad you came." "Me too," she replied, though her heart drummed loudly in her chest. They exchanged knowing glances, each hinting at the unfulfilled desire that had lingered, unacknowledged, for too long. "I have missed you," he continued, his voice dipping into vulnerability. The words washed over her like a familiar embrace, igniting memories of laughter and joy that danced just beyond her reach. Inwardly, Emily wrestled with her burgeoning affection for Alex, recalling the late-night talks and the way they effortlessly connected. Flashbacks of their shared moments flickered in her mind, dancing with abandon at summer festivals, stolen kisses beneath a starlit sky. Were those memories as deep as her feelings for Mark? This internal duel left her heart torn. I have thought about us, she finally ventured, her voice steadying despite the whirlwind within, about what could have been. She paused, searching his expression, and what we still can be. The atmosphere thickened, stretching between them like an invisible web, binding their hopes and fears. Just then, the tranquility shattered with the abrupt sound of footsteps. Emily's heart sank. Mark emerged from behind the trees, his presence electrifying the moment. Mark's voice dropped like a stone, heavy with hurt. His gaze flickered between her and Alex, processing the scene unfolding before him. Every ounce of his anguish was palpable, churning the air thick with unspoken accusations. Mark, she started, but the words felt inadequate amid the emotional tempest. Save it, he shot back, his voice strained, the hurt shining clearly through his eyes. I thought we were building something real. And now he trailed off, the betrayal hanging in the silence, heavy and suffocating. Caught in this confrontation, Emily felt the urgency of her own indecision flooding her mind. Half measures. Isn't it? He hurled back, stepping closer, the tension amplifying. You are here with him. How could I not think this? In that charged moment, something inside Emily snapped. I am trying to figure out what I want. Mark, do you even understand that? Her heart raced as the confrontation surged, spilling out emotions she had buried for too long. His questions sliced through the air, raw and unyielding. Do not know, she admitted, her voice trembling now. It felt like admitting weakness, a crack in her defenses. But in that confession lay the essence of her transformation. As they stood there, Alex, hopeful and open, Mark, devastated and fierce, and Emily caught in the storm, she felt the potential for everything to change. The stakes had never been higher, and they were all on the precipice of something irreversible. Love and betrayal hung palpably in the air, with no clear resolution on the horizon. The enormity of their entangled fates pressed down on her, urging her to take the leap. What came next would define them all. The confrontation left the air thick, with a mixture of chaos and raw emotion. Mark's shoulders slumped forward, the devastation of betrayal echoing in every breath he took. Emily watched him, her heart pounding in her chest, while Alex stood to the side, a flicker of hope igniting behind his eyes. No one knew what to say. Words seemed inadequate for the weight of their tangled relationships. Emily felt fractured, her identity shifting as she stood between the two men. Guilt gnawed at her insides, a constant reminder of the choices made. In the quiet that followed, they each began to process the aftermath of their actions. I cannot believe you would do this to us. Mark finally broke the silence, his voice charged with pain. Did it mean nothing to you? It was a moment of weakness. Emily's voice trembled, the truth heavy on her tongue. But it showed me so much about myself, about us. What do you mean? Mark's brow furrowed, uncertainty mingling with hurt. I need to figure out what loyalty means to me, she confessed, her gaze dropping to the floor as if the answer lay there. I did not realize how much I had lost sight of what my heart truly wants. Mark's expression softened slightly, the flicker of understanding, piercing through his anguish. We are bound by history, but is that enough to justify what happened? He leaned closer, the distance between them charged with both fear and connection. Emily inhaled deeply, steadying herself for the truth she had to face. Maybe it is not about justifying things. Maybe it is about choosing to support each other to create something real. In this chaos I have seen light, but I am scared. Her voice trembled, the weight of her confession pouring out. Maybe we can rebuild from this, he suggested, a tentative from this, hope weaving through his words. But it will not be easy. We need honesty, full honesty. Yes, she replied, her resolve strengthening. They both knew the road ahead would be bumpy, filled with uncomfortable conversations and moments of vulnerability. But the realization that loyalty could be a choice rooted in truth, rather than obligation, was a revelation that breathed new life into her understanding of love. I have been thinking, she began, her voice steadying. about how rebuilding a relationship often requires dismantling the past. The words hung in the air, resonating with the complex emotions swirling among. Each layer revealed pushed them toward a cathartic healing. As they spoke, Emily felt a softness blooming inside Heron, acceptance of the fractured pieces of her life that needed time and patience to mend, nudging away the shadows of betrayal. Just as Emily began to embrace her newfound perspective, the door creaked open. Alex, unexpected and imposing, stepped into the space they had shared, his expression unreadable. The room fell silent, and her heart raced, fear gripping her. "What are you doing here?" Mark snapped, tension flaring as he squared his shoulders. "Emily," Alex said, his voice low, sending a wave of apprehension through her. "I have news, and it might change everything again." This was a moment of truth that threatened to unravel everything they had just started to rebuild. She exchanged glances with Mark. Confusion and anticipation hung heavily in the air. As Alex stepped deeper into the room, Emily's heart sank while curiosity and dread tangled together. What revelation could he possibly bring that would alter their fragile hope? As the weight of the moment hung between them, Emily felt both infinite love and unbearable sadness as she glanced at Mark. This was the conversation they had skirted around for so long, the one that had the power to unravel the tangle of their shared memories. "Mark, I wish things could have been different," she whispered, her voice trembling. A lump rose in her throat, and she fought the urge to let the tears flow. Hadn't they both deserved the chance at a happy tomorrow? Yet, here they were, standing at the precipice of decision. Mark's expression softened, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know him. But sometimes we have to face the truth, no matter how painful it is." His voice broke, reverberating with the weight of their shared past. The air between them was thick, filled with unspoken affection, and the inevitable reality that hung like a dark cloud. "Are we really ready to let go?" Emily asked, a part of her hoping he might say otherwise. She clung to the hope that love would somehow conquer all, would save them. "It is not about letting go of what we had," Mark replied softly, "but accepting that our happiness looks different now." Emily nodded slowly, wrestling with the tidal wave of emotions crashing over her. They had loved fiercely, but the affection they felt now was tinged with the bittersweet realization of what they could no longer be. Her heart ached as she turned away, glancing at the photographs on the wall, frozen moments of joy that felt like echoes of a distant life. "Sometimes, true love means letting go, Heather, of a past relationship or of the illusions we create," Mark said, his words embedding deeply into her heart. She understood now that love was not just about holding on, but also about making hard choices for a brighter future. Even when the path led away from one another, a tear slipped down her cheek, and she chuckled softly, trying to mask the sorrow. "I guess we were brave enough to love each other, and perhaps that bravery will guide us through this," she said, finding some solace in their shared acceptance. Mark smiled gently, a bittersweet expression engulfing his face. "I will always care for you, Emily. Emily. Thank you for being my greatest adventure." His voice quivered with sincerity, affirming that their bond, while shifting, was far from broken. As they took a step back, a profound understanding settled between them, the kind that transcended words. They stood united in their moment of truth, neither one believing the other deserved anything less than happiness, be it with or without one another. "Hey, everyone watching." Emily suddenly spoke toward the camera, her voice filled with warmth. "Have you ever faced a choice between following your heart and remaining true to your commitments? I would love for you to reflect on that." The sincerity in her eyes invited personal connections, a moment where her story could resonate deeply with the viewers. "Hit that like button if you believe in the power of honesty in relationships," she encouraged, wanting to inspire others to seek truth, even when the truth was hard to face. "Take a moment to appreciate someone in your life. Message them right after this video," Emily urged, her heart expanding with gratitude for everyone who had touched her journey. She knew the value of connection and wanted others to feel that magic too. "Let us discuss in the comments. What do you think is more important in a relationship, commitment or personal happiness?" Mark added, eager to engage with the community they had created. With a heartfelt smile, Emily concluded, "Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. Let us continue exploring life's intricate stories together. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your minds curious. Her words wrapped around the viewers like a warm embrace, leaving them inspired, reflective, and ready for whatever life had in store next.